According to a new study that was done by Consumer Reports, a majority of packaged goods that are labeled natural are actually contain genetically modified ingredients, which makes it unclear, as to whether they are natural or not, because they grow, but they've been modified in a laboratory or whatever. Apparently, the FDA will allow companies to put the word natural on a product label as long as it says JKLOL on the back of the product. But critics of genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, claim that they pose health risks. It's a complicated issue, though, because there isn't a lot of evidence to back that up. Still, some people are dead set against them. There's been legislation designed to limit GMOs. You see documentaries and angry Facebook posts about it. How many of you do not want GMOs in your body? Yes? Okay, a lot of people. All right. So, as I usually do when people take a stance on a complicated issue, I wondered how many people who are against GMOs really know what they are. So we sent a crew to one of our local farmers markets to ask people why they avoid GMOs, and more specifically, what the letters GMO stand for.
Okay, so do you know where most of the produce you sell comes from?
Well, some of them comes from, I believe, from local. And we also comes from all over the place, Peru, Colombia, and various other countries.
Okay, and are you aware of just what a GMO is?
I know it's called genetically modified, I don't know what the O is, unfortunately, sorry.
Okay. And if you walked around, could you identify which foods contain GMOs?
Well, I know that there's tomatoes or everything else. Unfortunately, you're going to have to ask produce.
Okay.
Trying to make sure our products, some of the products are GMO, some no.
Do you think that the labeling of GMOs should be mandatory?
Well, people have to know if they're GMOs or not. Some people are picky like that. More picky because GMOs are scary or something like that.
Thank you.
No problem.
Have a good day. So, are you aware of what a GMO is?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what it is? Can you describe it?
Genetically modified organism.
So, could you identify the foods within just the supermarket which have GMOs?
We're standing in a frozen aisle right now, and I can tell you a lot of it is probably synthetic. A lot of our produce probably has pesticides in that business, and basically farmers don't want to use pesticides. They can genetically modify plants, profits, it makes sense, but probably 50% of the store, I'd say.
Do you think the labeling of GMOs should be mandatory?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, guys, we're gonna go interview the lunch lady about the GMOs that are in the food they serve here, and we're just gonna ask them if they know what's in it and if they know like the potential harmful effects that they could have on consumers. And we're just gonna ask them that. All right, so we just got denied. We're not allowed to interview them, apparently. So there's that. Now we're done.
Can you identify what a GMO is?
No.
I should have looked over the questions.
What's your thing on?
GMOs.
What's that?
It's a genetically modified organism. Do you think they should be labeled?
Yeah. It should be labeled. The genetically modified, you want to know what gene was modified.
Okay, you consume these foods on a daily basis and they're sold in school, in the grocery store. How does that make you feel?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. I'm gonna have to cut this. You consume these foods on a daily basis. and you buy them at the grocery store, but you don't know that they're modified. Like an example would be an apple, a zucchini, certain meats. How does that make you feel?
Scary.
Okay, so do you know where most of the produce you guys sell comes from?
No, I'm in the meat department.
Okay, so are you aware of what a GMO is?
Genetically modified something, I forgot.
So could you identify any of the foods in the store which you sell that contain GMOs?
Anything that's not organic or natural?
Okay, and do you think that the labeling of GMOs should be mandatory?
Yeah, that's why we do it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
No problem.
Genetically engineered crops in agriculture, a worldwide experiment on people, animals, and nature. Cultivation of genetically engineered crops like soy, maize, cotton, or canola have far-reaching consequences. 90% of genetically engineered crops belong to the corporate agricultural group Monsanto. The rest are owned by Syngenta, DuPont, Bayer, and others. Genetic manipulation of crops can have uncontrollable consequences. The function of genomes is only partially understood, but foreign genes are still introduced into crops. These genetically engineered crops are widely cultivated outdoors, where they cannot be controlled. Currently, 90% of GE cultivation occurs in the Americas, particularly in the USA, Argentina, Brazil, and Canada. It seems researchers have forgotten that genetically engineered crops once outside can no longer be controlled like they could in the lab. GE crops can self-replicate and pass on their new characteristics to neighboring crops, penetrating the fields of farmers who want to cultivate their crops without genetic engineering. Adverts from the genetic engineering lobby claim genetically engineered crops produce higher yields, but this marketing mantra is a complete hoax. It has been shown that crop yields for GE crops are no higher than normal crops, but farmers must buy more expensive patented genetically engineered seeds each year. This forces them to become dependent on corporate giants. But that's not all.
To increase the quality of milk produced, cows are often given RBGH, or recombinant bovine growth hormone, which is also banned in European Union, Japan, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. Numbers of this GMO located in veggies are relatively small, but genetically modified zucchini can be found in 2 different species in the US. The species contain protein genes that protect against viruses. Just like their other GMO counterparts, you won't be able to tell a difference between non-GMO and GMOs in zucchini. 85% of our country's corn is genetically modified. Even Whole Foods' 365 brand of cornflakes was found to contain genetically modified corn. Many producers modify corn, soy, and canola so they are herbicide tolerant. They also use the herbicide glyphosate on the crops to kill weeds. In 1996, genetic engineering for canola was approved, and around 90% of the US and Canada's canola are genetically modified. A real concern regarding genetically modified food production is the impact their creation and use may have on the environment. The threat to biodiversity means that our natural ecosystem can be compromised, particularly over the long term. The use of one kind of genetically modified crop could affect the growth of harmless wild plants that may serve as food to wildlife and other organisms in the ecosystem. There is the potential for a genetically modified crop to essentially dominate the ecosystem and compromise its biodiversity, thus negatively impacting our environment as a whole. More than 2 decades ago, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration granted GMOs generally regarded as safe status, meaning the industry had no obligation to conduct long-term safety studies. And while GMOs don't have what scientists call acute effects, what about chronic effects? Those that come on gradually and can't be tied to one cause? Well, the French study, the most comprehensive GMO safety assessment ever conducted, highlights that concern. It involved 200 rats and spanned 2 years, the life expectancy of the species of rat used. The researchers investigated how eating Monsanto's Roundup Ready corn affected rats' health. They separated rats into 10 groups. 3 had part of their standard diet replaced at varying levels with Roundup Ready corn that had been treated with Roundup in the field. 3 received the same feed protocol but with untreated Roundup Ready corn. And 3 ate no genetically modified corn but had tiny amounts of Roundup herbicide in their drinking water. And 1 control group ate 2/3 standard rat chow and 1/3 non-genetically modified corn. Each group contained 10 females and 10 males. The researchers say that their results show severe adverse health effects, including mammary tumors and kidney and liver damage, leading to premature death from Roundup Ready corn and Roundup Ready herbicide, whether they were consumed separately or together. Almost all of the ill effects manifested after 90 days. By the end of the study, 50 to 80% of the females had developed large tumors, compared with 30% developing tumors in the control group. In males, liver congestion and necrosis were 2.5 to 5.5 times higher than in the control group, and there were 1.3 to 2.3 times more instances of kidney disease. Overall, among the rats receiving genetically modified corn or Roundup, up to 50% of males and 70% of females died prematurely, compared with only 30% and 20% in the control group.
We measured all sorts of things, growth, for example, how these young animals were growing, what happened to their inside, and what happened to their immune system. And it became clear that the GM had a slower growth. It had problems with internal development of its organs, and it certainly knocked out the immune system.
Only the rats that ate the GM potato got sick. They had potentially precancerous cell growth in their digestive tract, smaller brains, livers, and testicles, partial atrophy of the liver, damaged immune system in 10 days. What was the cause of that damage? It was not the insecticide, because the group eating the insecticide did not have the problem. It was understood that it was the process of genetic engineering itself and the unpredicted side effects that caused this profound damage to every system and organ state.
Should I go in the line? Don't look at me. This is a documentary. Yeah.
Wait.
Oh, that was good. What we just did.
The apple Danish?
We're just gonna have narration over this the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't mind at all. You can just give me a hot Cheetos. I would not mind.
Caroline, buy your stuff now.
And hot Cheetos, he said.
I'm gonna zoom in on your Pop-Tart. Now walk away dramatically. Slowly. That was good.